1. My fiancée and I have our anniversary coming up, and so this prompted me to share these stories. The first has to do with how we met and how strange it was. The second has to do with his little niece and her ghost sightings. Story 1. My fiancée and I met 4 years ago under circumstances that can only be described as glitchy. We were both 17 and lived in the same neighborhood for years, but had never met before this night. I planned to just go to sleep because it was around 8 p.m. or so, and I was tired, but my friend, we will call her Kim, had other plans for me. Kim came over and insisted I come on a walk with her. She wouldn't take no for an answer, so eventually I relented and went. On the walk, she meets with a group of her friends and someone neither of us have met before. It's my now fiancé, and I can't take my eyes off of him. We get to talking and discover we have a lot of strange interests in common. The attraction was so instant and has never faded. Strangely, I was certain at the time that I was a lesbian, but somehow I found this boy attractive beyond any girl I'd ever met. From his perspective, he says he felt compelled to go on a walk that night, even though he never did that. He said that as soon as I spoke, when I was around him, he was instantly drawn to me in a weird way. From the moment we met, it felt like we had known each other forever. His parents say it's like we have a connection all the way down in our souls. This is the closest thing to fate I have ever experienced. Story 2. A year or so ago, his little niece began seeing someone around their house that no one else could see. She kept trying to offer water to this invisible person. When asked for a name, she responded, Yezu, or Jesus but pronounced Jesus, so no one got that either. And no one knew what she meant. Then I was talking in the car with his older nephew, and he tells me this. I almost stopped the car in shock. I speak German, and the way she said it was the German way to pronounce Jesus. It's odd that she would say it in the German way, only for me to come along and be able to tell the family what she meant, since I am the only German speaker in either of our families. 2. I was around 8 years of age at the time, living in a small town situated just a few minutes' drive from the ocean. Lovely place anyways. At that age, myself and a bunch of my friends would usually go outside to play some cricket over the holidays, just for kicks. Regardless of the broken windows and consequent hiding that would ensue such ventures. The day of the event started as usual, you know. Wake up, grab some breakfast, and relish the thought of another day off as it was school holidays again, with the aforementioned plan of the most random cricket game to ensue. It was about 10 a.m. on that bright sunny day, with a few specks of clouds randomly floating around the blue sky. I was a fielder at that time, and started chasing for the ball right after the batsman smashed it across the grass field. I was not really running lungs out, more like an attempt of such. Mid-stride, I get stopped dead in my tracks. No tilting over from the sudden stop or anything, but rather a force struck me through my skull down my spine, and it felt like being pegged down. Basically, take a ball, let it roll, then you stop it by hitting a nail through it. Well, luckily it wasn't painful as that would have been. It felt like I was being pulled straight, if that fits the imagination. As this is taking place, and now remember it was sunny out, my head gets jerked up, if you could call it that, and what I saw next baffles me to this day. Right above my head, maybe 3 feet up there, hovered an oval sphere of some sorts. In the center it was bright pinkish, almost purple, kinda shaped like a massive cat's eye, but the whole eye is shaped like the iris, and the iris being the pinkish part, if you can imagine that. From that center it pulsated a bluish hue until that itself reached the edge of this shape. Basically, it was some form of contained energy. It was rather big, almost the height of a grown man, and the width of a well-fed man too. After staring at this thing, I saw nothing but black for a few seconds. Right after that occurred, I ran to my nearest teamie friend, and asked if she saw it too, but she had this vague expression, and sort of nodded. And then I promptly started crying and running for home. Home wasn't that far away, and since my dad was there, I headed straight for him in a flurry of sobs and mumbles. And by the time I got anything out, all I could tell him was there is something stuck in my throat. Following this, I stood almost 30 minutes hovering over the toilet, trying to get this thing out of my throat. only later to realize it was my inner small tongue that was touching the back of my tongue. Silly, I know. And now you ask, but why the thing in his throat part? And I say, oh, but wait, here's the kicker. Only years later, I remembered the part with the ominous blue-purple-pink thing stopping me dead in my tracks. All I remembered for a long while was that damn thing was stuck in my throat, completely oblivious to the incident just before that. It was wiped from my memory a mere minute after it happened. This memory came back with a series of other flashbacks, but I have yet to find someone with the same exact experience. And yes, I ruled out lightning. That kind of kick is something I doubt you will forget in just a minute. Any and all info would be highly appreciated. I have scoured the internet and the libraries for anything remotely close to what might have happened that day. The only thing I found was some guy years ago seeing something like it outside his room, if I recall correctly. But that was a close match, but not exactly the same thing or event. 3. When I was 9 years old, I was playing in the woods with my cousin and brother. We grew up around a lot of forest, but this is the first time any of us were in this area. We made our way towards my uncle's property where the woods met a big field. Just as we start to see the field through the trees, we hear buzzing. Yellow-jacket wasps start to pour out of the ground and swarm us. My cousin escapes severe injury, then my brother just barely, but since I was a small chubby girl, I fell behind. This caused me to get stung over 200 times. I remember everything up to the point that I passed out very well. I can remember the pain that it felt like acid all over my body. I remember my 90s floral bell-bottom jeans and little red backpack, where I was and what had happened. I ran out of the woods screaming with my cousin and brother, then my older cousin picked me up and ran me down the street to my house where I passed out in the driveway. I still remember how the wasps sounded, looked, and felt when they swarmed. I can even recall being carried home, but that's it. Everything goes dark from there. Afterwards, I have one distinct memory of waking up in the hospital and looking down at my stomach with the thought that it looked like a watermelon's insides, but no one was with me at the time. I was just alone in a normal hospital bed in just my underwear, surrounded by lights and wires. It was no longer than 20 seconds before it all goes black again. Later I learned that I did in fact die and an adrenaline needle was used to bring me back. Beyond that point, however, isn't even a blur. I remember nothing from age 9 to 10 after the incident. It's total blackness. No memory of waking up again. No leaving the hospital. Absolutely nothing. You know how people lose time? I feel as though I lost an entire year. The very next memory I have is getting a cat for my 10th birthday, followed by a trip to Disney World. From there on, my memories fade back in like normal. If that isn't weird enough, it gets really bizarre when it comes to family. As you imagine, this is a huge story that my mom has told everyone I've ever known, including our whole family. It was a big deal as something like this doesn't happen often, let alone a child surviving the whole thing. So it's something that was a huge part of my life. It really happened, yet when I ask my family about after, it's a generic response of, we came home and things went back to normal. I have questions like how long was I in the hospital? What went on after I was normal? Was I in the ICU? And I am always met with unclear answers or none at all. It's as if all the details of after were forgotten by everyone. Everyone for the year after is completely blank. I've asked several family members and everyone can cite this story up until my return home. I've been trying to do research, yet there were never news articles about the incident published, at least none I know of. And more recently, I've set on the path to obtain my medical records, though that's a process because my name cannot be found in the records, even though I was born in the same hospital. I'm sure that's just a technical issue, but it seems every step I take in learning the history about my endeavor, there is something in my way. I will continue to pressure my family because I'm afraid I will never learn more. It's very important to me because nothing else in my life has ever happened like that before or since. I've never lost so much time. Maybe it was just the trauma and joy of my survival that made everyone forget. But I feel like personally, if my brain blocked out the trauma, it would have blocked the event, not the aftermath. I don't know the long-term effects this incident had on my body, and if anyone has had similar experiences, please let me know. I need to know more about my near-death experience. Was this a glitch or some kind of bizarre traumatic event, causing everyone to lose the details? I try not to obsess about it, but I'm afraid I'll never get my answers. I've been a much different person since and have an extreme and justifiable phobia of wasps. 4. My mother's side grandmother had a brother. He was around 8 or 9 maybe when a car hit him. He was injured and taken home by people. This happened around 40 to 50 years ago in a village in India. After reaching home, he asked for water. His mother went to bring water, but he died by then. In a village far from that village, one boy was born in another family. When he grew up a little and started talking, he used to mumble some things when he was alone, so one day his father thought he should listen to what he mumbles. His father hid near him and started to listen to what the young 4 or 5-year-old boy was mumbling. He was saying, "This is not my home. This is not my father. This is not my mother. I want to go home. I want to see my mother. I want to see my father and siblings." The father, after listening to him, got shocked and immediately confronted the little boy. He asked him why is he talking this, and who he thinks is his real family and real address. The boy told everything to his father. His father's name, the village name, mother's name, brother's name, etc., etc. The boy's father searched for the village, and the name the boy told was his father. Turned out everything was true, so these people took the little boy to his old family. They made a group of ladies with the old mother in that group, and told the boy to identify his old mother. The boy immediately identified and complained to his old family that they never tried to find him. All of the village came to see this incident, and everyone knew that a Brahmin boy who died some years ago is born again in a Jat family. You can read about the caste system in India on the internet. So all of them, the old family and the new family, thought that the boy will forget everything with time, and is better if he stays with the new family. So the new family took the little boy with them and lost all contacts. After 4 or 5 years, when the boy was around 9 or 10 years old, the boy got a dream that it's his sister's wedding in the old family. So he woke up, he packed a little food, and went on foot to his old village. He started around midnight and reached around evening when all the ceremonies were about to finish. And then he cried a lot, telling that his old family don't consider him their son, and no one ever contacts him and talks to him, and that everyone in his old family forgot about him. So the old family promised that he'll always be considered part of the family. Old family is my grandmother's. He still comes in every function of my mother's family. The dying experience as told by him. He told that everything was black, and a guy came, a huge guy, and took him at a place where an old guy was sitting with a huge book. A lot of people were in a huge queue in all kinds of clothes. Apparently clothes in which they died, I don't know, I don't remember everything correctly. Waiting for their turn. When the boy's turn came, the old guy asked for his name, his father's name, and his village. Then he told the huge guy that you picked the wrong one. Go back and leave him. He is a happy man with family and kids. He also used to look at people's hand or head, and was able to tell that something bad is going to happen to them in the future. He was correct 100% of the time. So now he stopped doing it. Thank you for listening. 5. For some background, I live in a small, fairly historical city. We've always had a history of weird happenings, but they've always been paranormal related. Some of our cemeteries have made top 10 haunted places in America lists. There's even books dedicated to our hauntings, so suffice it to say I've been around this kind of thing for my whole life. I've experienced a lot, but this glitch takes the cake. I don't know if I'll ever be able to explain it, but maybe you can. Last weekend I was invited over to my friend's apartment to hang out. He lives about 10 or so minutes away, and I've been there countless times. Nothing about this place is new. No one is building anything, there's only 2 main roads you can take to get there, and he's surrounded by other houses, a Walgreens, a gas station, and a Rite Aid. He's not in the middle of nowhere. I stay for a few hours, and decide to leave around 12:30 AM. We didn't drink, we didn't do any drugs, we literally just sat on his couch and watched Thor Ragnarok while eating some pizza. Like I said, there's 2 roads to get to and from his house, and I decided to take the less busy, more residential one, which I usually do when I leave. Again, I've been on this road hundreds of times. So I start driving, put the radio on and await my turn, which is on the left. When it should be coming up, I start to look for it. Only there's no turn. I drive for a bit more, maybe 5 minutes or so, and I think to myself that I probably just passed it, because I've been driving for way too long at this point. Again, I think to myself, I'll just drive until I find a parking space where I can pull in and turn around. Except now I'm actually really paying attention to where I'm going. I have no clue where I am. What should be houses around me are now woods. Complete, extremely dark, thick woods. The road is so narrow that there's no second lane, and it's so black that it's almost blue. I have to turn on my high beams, which is rare in my city, as we have streetlights. I'm extremely confused, because we don't have woods anywhere around here. Like I said, where he lives there's a Walgreens, a dentist's office, gas stations, a laundromat, Burger King, Dunkin' Donuts, Walmart, etc. It's a place people frequent. A place where there's houses and apartments all over, not woods. Anyway, I decide that I'll just drive for a few more minutes to see if I can get my bearings. I drive for about 3 to 5 more minutes, as there was only one song that played on the radio during that time. And there's just absolutely nothing but a straight 1-lane road, woods and complete darkness. No houses, no cars, no streetlights, no signs. I honestly started to get a little freaked out, and figured that I should just turn around. To do so, I had to do a K-point turn, and with my high beams shining into the woods, there's just rows and rows of trees. You literally couldn't see anything. I'm just completely confused by this point, and turned back around. I drove for about 3 to 5 more minutes, as there was a commercial break on the radio, and finally, I come back onto a street. A street I recognize, because on the left is my friend's apartment. I'm back on the main road I turned onto when I left his place, only now it's 1:30 AM, and I have a quarter of a tank of gas left, when I never let my tank get below half. Somehow in those 10 to 20 minutes I was driving, an hour had passed, and used up about half my tank of gas. Really confused now. I drive down the street and my turn is on the left, right where it should be, meaning that I never passed it in the first place, as I didn't circle around, even though I never turned off anywhere, because the road is straight, and that's the only turn you can make. I somehow drove completely straight, turned, drove straight back again, and ended up right outside my friend's apartment. I have no clue if that's a glitch, if I somehow entered an alternate dimension. I don't know what happened. I told my brother the next day how I was surrounded by woods, how I never made a turn, and how there was just nothing. And he was puzzled too. He asked me, "Where were you?" Unfortunately, I don't think I'll ever be able to answer him. At this point, I'd even chalk it up to me being tired, as it was late. But I work nights, and frequently stay up until 3 AM. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 5 True Glitch in the Matrix Stories, episode 67. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Well, I guess we're really heading straight on into summer now, because the moths and the flies and all those horrid little creatures are about. And they know I'm trying to record stories, so they like to fly right in my face. Tell you, I can put up with a lot while recording. I don't know if you can hear the neighbours making noise, banging around, whatever they're doing in the background. Hope it's something fun, but probably not. I can put up with a lot, but things flying right into my eye, shockingly, distracts me from what I'm doing. So I've got that to look forward to. I've got a zapper somewhere, but I've got it in the living room. I might have to move it upstairs. Well. The glamour of being a narrator, I suppose. It's not all glamour and orgies and beautiful, scantily clad women feeding you marshmallows when you're in the rater, you know. Sometimes there's real unpleasant stuff to deal with too. Ah well, with that I'm going to head off for now, so until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.